In the very footprints of where the World Trade Center tower stood, the two memorial pools were dedicated in front of the families and friends of those who perished.
They were our neighbors, our friends, our husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, children, and parents. They were the ones who rushed in to help.
And my father, Sebastian Gorky, who I never met because I was in my mom's belly. I love you, Father.
Families were able to touch their loved ones, their names, reminding the world who they were and what happened.
Although words cannot ease the pain of these losses, paying tribute by recalling not just the horror of that day, but the heroism as well, can hopefully give you some comfort and stiffen the resolve of this nation.
My father, Alan Anthony Bevan.
Americans do not live in fear. We live in freedom.
We're inside the National 9/11 Memorial Museum, near the pools dedicated today. The museum is still under construction. It opens to the public September 11, 2012. You're looking at one of the most massive exhibits, two soaring steel tridents, both about 80 feet high, both weighing about 60 tons. These pillars were part of the facade of Tower 1, salvaged from the wreckage at Ground Zero. The museum will chronicle the events of that awful day, but also what led up to it. The hope is to lay the groundwork for a post-9/11 world without terrorism. Preserving the memories, honoring the fallen, just might help ease the burden for some of the survivors. 10 years later, it's a burden the men of Engine 7 Ladder 1 know all too well.
A decade after 9/11, the huge scar in the New York City skyline is finally beginning to heal.
It's ever-changing down there. New buildings are going up.
It's almost like spring. It's sprouting. It's a sign of new life, a sign of time passes and things are being built. This actually helps.
I'm happy that work is getting done finally. It took way, way too long to get started. It should be done already. It's nice to see that they left the footprint of both towers, so it's a sacred ground and people can come and show their respects.
We're going to build a building that's 1,776 feet in height to show the rest of the world. We may be down for a couple days, but we're not out, and we'll never be out.
The men of Engine 7 Ladder 1 have shown the same resilience. We're moving on. We have productive lives and loving families.
I cherish my granddaughter, my children, my wife.
But we've learned to live with a hard truth. 9/11 changed us. It will always be with us.
There were two planes. I saw the second one hit.
9/11 is a part of me. It's made me who and what I am now. It's something that will never go away.
Around 8:30, I believe the run came in.
Every day, there is a thought in my head from that day. If I left the building 2 minutes later, after they told me to leave, I may not be here right now.
You know, to say time heals all wounds, I don't think it is. In this tragedy.
9/11 was just yesterday to me. Something could remind me, and it was yesterday.
Yesterday.
And tomorrow, it will feel like just yesterday. And the week after, it will feel like just like yesterday. Because the images are burnt into my brain, the tragedies, the senselessness of it, It's just overwhelming for me.
Keep your eyes open when you're walking around down there.
Ron Schmutzler, a captain on 9/11, is now a battalion chief, in charge of 4 Lower Manhattan firehouses, including 7 and 1.
It's difficult sometimes working down here, being within the shadow of the Trade Center. I had a lot of friends that I lost down there. I don't think I could ever explain to people what it was like that day.
5 months after the attacks, Captain Dennis Tardio, the man who led his men up into the North Tower, retired after 23 years of service.
She's the princess. In retirement, I'm fortunate enough to have a grandchild now, a 2-year-old little girl, Shayna. Why am I lucky enough to see her?
Oh, what a big girl.
When 3,000 children from this tragedy are parentless.
Jamal Braithwaite transferred to a Bronx firehouse shortly after 9/11. He rarely talks about that day.
I didn't do enough because I survived and other people died, so they must have did a great job or something like that. So I always felt that I didn't do enough.
You shouldn't have even come in here, man.
For guys like Ed Fahey, who left the fire department in 2008, the wounds are still raw.
I think about 9/11 every day. I'm not on the fire department no more because of 9/11. Not married no more because of 9/11. Everything. Everything. I look at the clock every day. Either I see 343, the amount of firemen that died. I see 9/11. I could look at a license plate in front of me at a traffic light, and I'll match up numbers that match 343. I kid you not. So every day. Change everything in my life. But like I said, on the other hand, I'm still here, so I battle with it. That's my life with 9/11.
He's not alone. An estimated 10,000 first responders still suffer from survivor's guilt, post-traumatic stress, and chronic depression.
Initially, when the fire department offered counseling, I would talk to them and nothing ever got accomplished. So that's when I started just taking care of myself. I definitely started drinking more. I started holding everything in. I won't tell people what's on my mind.
I personally knew about 100 of these guys. That's a lot of friends to lose in one day. I started going to counseling right away in 2001. It was only because of the horrific things that I saw and that my brain could not process. I mean, I saw people jumping from very high heights.
Hold on 1 second, please. I'm gonna die, aren't I? No. I'm gonna die. Live. We're gonna think positive.
And I saw people holding hands, jumping.
On 9/11, Steve Olson had climbed to the 37th floor of the North Tower when he heard the order to evacuate. He got out of the building with seconds to spare.
The sleepless nights, the night sweat, I wake up in the middle of the night, in a panic, and my wife's got to grab me and tell me I'm home and I'm safe.
Nearly 6 years after the attacks, Steve narrowly cheated death again when he became trapped in a fire that ripped through the partly demolished Deutsche Bank building, severely damaged on 9/11.
And 2 firefighters were killed there. It was Mayday after Mayday after Mayday. The only time I ever heard that many Maydays was on 9/11. I could see the black smoke going over my shoulders and being sucked down in between my legs, which is a bad sign for a firefighter that a flashover is imminent. I just jumped to the scaffolding, and I landed very hard.
Badly injured and emotionally shaken, Steve had fought his last fire. After a 20-year career, he retired in 2008.
I saw so many firefighters die in the line of duty, and it was taking a psychological toll on me.
Our probie on 9/11, Tony Benetatos, is working his way up the ladder and hopes to make lieutenant soon.
It was my intent when I got on the job to try to make a difference.
He did, with the fire department's Hazmat 1, and later with the decon unit.
If there is a terrorist event, you're going to have people who are exposed to toxins and chemicals. Our job is to get those chemicals off the people as quickly as possible.
At the firehouse, still a special place for us. Just a few guys from the original crew are left.
Time marches on. Sometimes you go there and it's all new faces. You know, you knock on the door and they ask, "Can I help you?"
Engine 7 Ladder 1 is sometimes called the Miracle House. Because we didn't lose a single man on 9/11. Last winter, it all changed. Randy Wiebeck, a lieutenant in Ladder 1, and a husband and father of 3, died in March from multiple myeloma, a deadly blood cancer most people get in their 70s and 80s. Randy was just 54.
When he got diagnosed, I couldn't believe it. Randy was like the biggest, strongest guy I knew. And I just didn't think anything could touch him. He was like my hero, and
this is Randy, working on the pile. Madeline is convinced her husband of 22 years died as a result of breathing the toxic dust.
right from the very beginning, his primary doctor totally believed it was from 9/11 and the toxic fumes and dust and everything that he was in. I mean, our time in the hospital, we got closer than ever. And I would just lay my heart on his heart, which is what I would always do, and just tell him how much I loved him.
Feet down, and salute!
We're going to bury a brave, dedicated man who was loved by all, especially his wife, Madeline, and his children. But we'll do that, and we'll do it with honor.
Even if you had told him, if you go down there, this is going to happen to you, he would have went down there.
Randy worked on the pile with John O'Neill.
Well, after 20 years on the job, I retired in 2004, and I moved down south.
On the 5th anniversary of 9/11, John returned to Ground Zero, a place he had avoided after spending hundreds of hours searching for bodies and clearing debris.
When that building fell down, it just took something from me. And I can't say I've gotten it back. I don't want to talk about myself because the people that died that day can't. They can't talk. I wish I could speak for them, but I don't know what to say.
In September 2010, John was diagnosed with multiple cancers.
He never wanted to talk about how he was sick. He'd say, "Oh, Jimmy, don't worry. I've lived a good life. I got to be a New York City fireman."
John O'Neill died in February on Valentine's Day. He was 60 years old. We said our final goodbyes to John aboard the new fireboat 343, named to honor the men lost on 9/11.
John O'Neill, he helped you out a lot. He taught you a lot. A great guy. That's all I could say about John.
Ready, two.
The sad and untimely deaths of John and Randy, and so many others, have made it all too clear. First responders who raced to save thousands of lives 10 years ago now need help themselves.
We're losing guys left and right every week, you know, because I'm back to going to funerals again every week, 10 years later.
We all share a growing fear that a gathering storm of disease will kill thousands more.
My outlook on life is, to be honest, it's short term. I have the I'm going to be dead soon anyway attitude.
In a heart-stopping 10.5 seconds, the trade towers disintegrated. Lead from 50,000 computers, mercury from 500,000 fluorescent lights, countless shards of glass, carpeting, plastic, asbestos, all of it pulverized into a superfine, toxic dust.
Couldn't see anything. It looked like nighttime, and we were choking.
You couldn't breathe.
It felt like the end of the world.
We attacked that 10-story pile of debris, thinking hundreds, maybe thousands of people had been buried alive.
You're looking for the people who are trapped under the pile. You're not really thinking about, well, what is this smoke that I'm breathing in going to do to me?
There'd be different color smokes coming up, purple and green and blue, and you had no idea what was burning down below.
We're dealing with an exposure to hundreds, if not thousands, of different toxins from the Trade Center, all ground up and mushed in together. However it could get on us or in us, it did.
2 days after the attacks, the Environmental Protection Agency said firefighters should be wearing respirators.
Even better, that's what these are all about. And it's important that they wear them.
But at the same time, EPA Chief Christine Whitman assured us the air was safe.
We have not seen any readings that indicate a health hazard. Everybody's safe at this point.
And 2 weeks later, we were told again, we shouldn't worry.
The air quality is safe and acceptable.
As we searched for survivors, we never heard a stern warning the air we were breathing was a dangerous, even deadly toxic brew.
The only thing that I remember them saying about the air quality is that there was nothing to worry about.
We had no mask. We had nothing. Eventually, they handed us all paper masks
that were totally useless.
After 20 minutes, it's clogged up, it's sweaty, and then you want to take it off.
A few weeks later, I ran into a respirator mask with the charcoal filters. Couldn't even find refills for it.
When the federal government announced that it was a safe site and that we didn't have to worry about any toxicity, we were not believing of that statement.
Bucket.
The message we've always tried to stay on target with is that there are a great number of unknowns.
The fire department first noticed something was wrong a month after the recovery operation began. Hundreds of firefighters coming off the pile told doctors they could barely breathe.
we started having units come down here for a full exam.
Great, excellent, just like that, quick. Great, just like that, continue to push, 3 more seconds.
There was a huge drop in pulmonary function after 9/11.
On average, those exposed to ground zero toxins had lost 12 years worth of normal lung capacity in just 1 year. No one knows for sure how many deaths have been linked to the toxic pile. The fire department puts the numbers at 50 to 100. The Firemen's Union insists they're much higher.
That number we know will grow because as the years go on, we are still seeing the impact of that day on our members.
I personally would like to see all those politicians go into those hospital rooms today and say sorry to all the first responders who are now dying one by one because the air was not safe.
A new federally funded fire department study conducted over 7 years claims firefighters who responded to the World Trade Center are suffering an increased rate of cancer.
My friends are getting sick. My friends are dying. And I get to wake up every morning and wonder, is today the day the shoe's going to drop on me?
After years of delays, Congress passed legislation to help those who are sick and dying. While respiratory and mental health conditions are covered, cancers are not. Congress had relied on an earlier study that failed to make the link between cancer and ground zero toxins.
Okay.
Firefighters feel abandoned.
You want to say they're the forgotten heroes.
Good evening. Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
I'm so happy that they finally, I know it's crazy to sound as mean, but somebody like that is just a maniac. He would just kill you, innocent people. His death did provide closure because he was the one that initiated all these plans against us, and we could say we paid back. We finally got you.
10 years on, Tommy Spinard still loves what he does. He and Steve Rogers are training the next generation of firefighters how to handle the next 9/11.
All units, evacuate the building.
You got an aerial of this?
Joseph Pfeiffer, Chief of Counterterrorism and Emergency Preparedness, is making sure our new firefighters are well equipped to handle any emergency.
Today we've developed an electronic command pad that's able to track where we deploy units, and we share information amongst fire and police and New York City government, state, and for the federal government. That's a critical lesson that's been learned the hard way from 9/11.
At the World Trade Center site, Chief Pfeiffer stands on the very spot where the towers fell, the sacred ground where so many were lost, including his brother Kevin.
With all the memories of the people that died here, we hope for the future. A future that involves all of us.
So, who's going out tonight? It was very rough for me. You know, I went back to the counseling unit. I'm getting some of it finally to where I could put on the back burner. It makes me feel better.
Last year, I started going back to counseling. It helped me out a lot this time, so it eventually worked for me.
Can you do eat?
We hope we're around long enough to watch our families grow.
The things I cherish most now is family.
Eventually to get this out of my mind, somehow, come to terms with it, and see my kids have a great, happy life.
Well, I am now a married man. My wife's name is Jessica. My daughter's name is Alexandra. I love her more than anything in this life.
I have two amazing kids, which are absolutely the joy of my life.
And me, I'm an uncle now, and I love it.
In 2007, I retired from the New York City Fire Department.
I always loved being a fireman. I'll always consider myself a fireman till the day I die.
As we move forward, We hope the world will remember what firefighters did that day. What they do every day.
It's about firefighters. People who suddenly, without wearing a magical cape, just rush into a building on fire.
343 members gave their lives up to rescue others.
And they were all heroes, all those guys.
If it happened again, we would be down there again. We don't leave people.
I think that the legacy of 9/11 is one of bravery, human spirit, overcoming adversity. You look at all those people who lost their lives, and they were going to help people. So it has to be a positive. Yeah.
Feels good, though.
But Tony might have said it best a decade ago, when the boy became a man on 9/11.
The legacy of the Trade Center should not be the death. It should be to show humanity's resiliency. The legacy of the Trade Center should be life and humanity.